All right, today we're jumping into a huge topic, something that touches almost everyone who's ever played a game online: toxicity. And look, it goes way beyond just a little friendly trash talk. This is a really deep issue with some serious real-world consequences. So let's get into it.
First off, let's just wrap our heads around the sheer scale we're dealing with. This isn't some small niche hobby. We're talking about roughly 3 billion gamers across the globe. That's almost 40% of the entire planet, all connecting and playing in this massive digital world.
But here's the really wild part about that digital world. A staggering 86% of those players say they've experienced toxicity. Just think about that for a second. That means for nearly 9 out of every 10 people trying to have fun, getting harassed is just part of the experience. That's not okay.
And this isn't just a social issue. It's a massive economic one, too. We're looking at a lost revenue opportunity of about $250 billion every single year. That's from players who just quit games because they're too toxic, or people who hear about it and decide not to even start. It's a number that developers and publishers just can't afford to ignore.
So if we actually want to fix this, we have to start by understanding the problem, the real human cost of it all. Let's break down what this toxicity epidemic really looks like.
Okay, so let's get on the same page. When we say toxicity, what are we really talking about? Well, it's basically any disruptive behavior that harms other people and just drags down the health of the entire community. It's the catch-all term for anything that makes gaming less safe and, frankly, less fun.
And these behaviors, they exist on a whole spectrum. You've got stuff on one end like trash talking or griefing, which is when someone just intentionally tries to ruin the game for other players. But man, it escalates fast. You get into spreading misinformation, straight-up hate speech, and then these terrifying real-world threats like doxing, that's releasing someone's private info, and swatting, which is calling in a fake police emergency on someone.
So yeah, this stuff is happening through a screen, but that brings up the big question, right? What is the actual, tangible harm that it causes people?
The impact is, well, it's staggering and pretty alarming. Studies have drawn a direct line from this kind of online harassment to severe mental health problems. Of the people affected, 67% report feeling more anxious, 59% experience depression, and this is the one that really gets me, 16% have seriously considered suicide. Let that sink in. What happens in the game absolutely does not stay in the game.
Which brings us to the next big question. Why? What's going on inside the mind of somebody who does this? Let's dig into the psychology and the environment behind all this toxic behavior.
So, psychologists have kind of pinpointed 2 main predictors for this kind of behavior. Now, on one hand, you have a really small group, we're talking maybe 2% of people, who might have personality traits like narcissism or a total lack of remorse. They are often deliberately hostile, and they are very, very resistant to change. But the vast majority of toxic behavior actually comes from people with low emotional intelligence. They might lack empathy, or they struggle to control their impulses. And here's the key. They're often not even aware of the harm they're causing, which means they can change if they get the right kind of support.
And it's not just about the person. The environment they're in plays a huge role. Anonymity makes people feel like there are no consequences for their actions. And if a game's culture just accepts aggression, or even worse, rewards it, well, you're just going to get more of it. It kind of reminds you of those classic psychology studies, right? Like the Stanford prison experiment, which showed that a bad situation can make good people do bad things.
So that leads us to how we've been trying to fix this. For decades, the main tool in the toolbox has been the ban hammer. But if that really worked, why is this problem just getting worse? Let's take a look at why the old way isn't cutting it anymore.
This is the core question we've got to ask. We have report buttons, we have teams of human moderators, we have AI that flags keywords. So with all that in place, why is toxicity still everywhere?
Well, there are 3 big reasons it's failing. First, it's totally reactive. It only steps in after the damage has already been done. Second, it's just about punishment. Banning someone doesn't teach them anything, it just kicks them out. And finally, we don't even have standardized ways to measure the health of a gaming community, so it's impossible to know if anything we're doing is actually working. So, this is the big takeaway. If we're serious about reducing toxicity, we have to completely change our focus. We need to stop just punishing bad actions and start actually trying to change the behaviors that cause them in the first place. And this, my friends, is where things get really, really interesting. Let's dive into our final section and see how new tech is being used not just to police communities, but to actively coach people toward being better. This new approach uses AI in 4 really smart steps. First, it detects toxic language as it's happening. Then it reflects that back to the person with a private message, something gentle like, hey, that message might have been seen as hurtful. Third, it helps them reframe, offering a more positive way to say what they mean. And finally, if they make that positive change, it reinforces the good behavior. It's basically a real-time feedback loop for building emotional intelligence.
But the million-dollar question is, does it actually work? Well, the data looks incredibly promising. This chart shows how well the AI's judgment lines up with a human's. That score of about 0.87, that's a very strong positive correlation. Put simply, it means the AI is almost as good as a person at detecting a toxic tone, and that's the crucial first step for this whole thing to work.
Now, of course, the tech isn't perfect. I mean, AI is still getting the hang of all the nuances of how we talk. Understanding deep context, evolving slang, and the inside jokes that every community has. It's going to take constant fine-tuning, but the foundation is incredibly solid.
And when you think about it, the benefits of this kind of approach are huge, and they touch everyone. Game developers get to lower their moderation costs and keep players around longer. Parents and teachers get a new tool to help keep an eye on safety. Policymakers can help make sure companies are complying with safety laws. And most important of all, gamers get a better experience. And, believe it or not, a chance to improve their own emotional intelligence.
Ultimately, the goal is pretty simple, but it's really powerful. The idea is to move from just punishment to actual education, using technology to guide people instead of just putting up walls. The vision is to build a world where every single gamer and even every spectator can feel safe. The question isn't if we can solve this problem anymore, it's just how quickly we'll choose to do it.